The day that Assassin's Creed died is a day that I will remember for the rest of my life. A moment so monumental that I just can't even face it anymore. The day Assassin's Creed died was, well, that'll be spoilers, so let's just backtrack a little. The Assassin's Creed franchise is one loved by many. Everyone has their own favourite game, or has had a fight over which one is better. That totally didn't happen. And the series has evolved over the years with new settings, new combat systems, even switching genre and, all that jazz. But one thing that has changed over the years for the franchise, and for better or for worse, but in this case it is certainly worse, is not the change to the RPG format or even the lesser focus on the Assassin's Creed lore, but instead it's the parkour and the worlds that you traverse. So here's a little backstory as to what inspired this video. I, like many others, have played the past few Assassin's Creed games, so Origins, Odyssey and Valhalla. And for me, after completing the campaigns, I never really found it fun to just roam around the worlds, as stunning as they all are. And so the other day I went and re-downloaded Assassin's Creed Unity, the first old-gen Assassin's Creed. And I was utterly shocked to what I had discovered. Free roaming was just so fun. Like, honestly, I had a real blast just parkouring from rooftop to rooftop, swinging from pole to pole with such finesse and grace. And then it hit me. At this point, I realised how much of the parkour in the newer Assassin's Creed games had been stripped back. There was no graceful descents down the side of a building. No, in the most recent games, Odyssey and Valhalla, to some degree Origins, but not as much, you just jump off. Like, what? That's insane. And for a series' main draw-in factor, that's insane to think that Ubisoft would think it would have been a smart move to strip it all away. And I feel like one of the main problems with the newer Assassin's Creeds is that the worlds don't actually accommodate the parkour anymore. For example, think back to Florence in the early Assassin's Creeds. Those worlds were sprawling with life and also buildings, and everywhere had a different route for you to take to a certain objective. You could take the canals, or you could run across rooftops, but instead in the newer Assassin's Creed you're more incentivized to ride your horse everywhere than actually explore the world on foot. And even in the newer Assassin's Creed, if you don't want to personally walk to a certain location, you can just go on autopilot on your horse, and I feel like that really does make the player lose the immersion in the world and the fascination with everything going around them. Because I'd argue even in the newer Assassin's Creed you're not even taking your own path to a location. Instead, you're getting a set path on where you have to go, and there's no freedom of climbing up buildings and running across rooftops just to get to the location in an exciting way. And it's really annoying in the sense that I don't mind if Ubisoft are stripping back the actual Assassin's Creed lore, because the majority of the personality of an Assassin's Creed game came from the parkour. And for example, when I was younger and I first played Assassin's Creed, I didn't even know what it was called at the time, but I always just used to refer to it as that parkour game, because that was my first introduction to the series, just roaming around Israel in the first Assassin's Creed. And that's really something that I will never forget. But the sad thing is that even if the newer Assassin's Creed games had the original parkour, it wouldn't really make much of a difference, as the worlds, as I said previously, do not accommodate the parkour system. As if you remember in the older Assassin's Creeds, the worlds were nice and dense with massive buildings and different routes to take. There wasn't just massive open spaces for you to traverse, and even in Assassin's Creed 3 with its forest areas, you could parkour literally everywhere through every tree that you could find. Whereas in the newer Assassin's Creeds, you can't even climb up a tree, which is just so sad. Actually, to be fair, the most sad thing in the world is that you can't even jump in the newer Assassin's Creeds. That's just so insane that you can only just jump if you're leaping onto a building. Just don't even get me started. This new approach that Ubisoft has taken to the Assassin's Creed franchise is part of the reason why I've had less interest in the series in general past Origins and Odyssey. Because yes, although the worlds are absolutely stunning recreations of their real-life counterparts, the games have really lost their character due to the worlds not being dense enough for the parkour to be a main factor, which it has been ever since the initial start of the series. And to be honest, this is a great way to move on to the next main reason, which is genuinely just the parkour system. And more specifically, where the hell did it go? Now, as we all know, parkour is a main factor of what built the Assassin's Creed franchise. And from game to game, Ubisoft would be improving on this parkour system. For example, if we go from Black Flag to then Unity, the difference is startling. The amount of control that you had over your character in Assassin's Creed Unity was one of the main reasons why I always come back to Unity for its parkour. And generally, I feel like Unity's parkour is more grounded in reality than people give it credit for. For example, if you compare it to any parkour video ever on YouTube, you could certainly see similarities and certain moves that are copied. And therefore it really did make the parkour feel real and engaging, as if this was something that you could actually do yourself in real life. But if you applied that logic to the newer Assassin's Creeds, you may end up with a few broken bones. As from about Odyssey onwards, you can just jump off any building without taking any fall damage. You don't even do a safety roll, you just crawl all over the floor and then just get back up. And I really hope you see what I mean by the fact that the newer games don't have any character with their parkour. The parkour just doesn't have any personality to make the games feel different and new, and an actual evolution of what we've seen in Unity and to some degree Syndicate, although it started to get stripped back from there as well. And in these newer Assassin's Creeds, you only really have like 3 moves. You can climb up a building, you can climb down a building, and you can also jump off a building. That's it. And for example, there are no external parts of buildings that make the parkour even more engaging. Like in the older Assassin's Creeds, there'd normally be a ramp that would lead up to a few poles or ledges that you could parkour across and eventually get to the top of a building. Instead, in the newer Assassin's Creeds, all you can do is climb up, climb down, and jump off. Like, where's the personality in that? And that's one of the main parts of the newer Assassin's Creeds that really frustrates me, the lack of personality. Yes, although the worlds have character, and the worlds do look stunning, don't get me wrong, because Ubisoft really have done some amazing work in crafting these historical locations, such as ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, or even medieval Britain. Because these developers really do deserve praise for being able to recreate such amazing locations, and although yes, I am critiquing the world, I'm not critiquing how it looks, but how it works for the player in the overall experience. But they don't serve the purpose that they used to, and yes, this may be due to the fact that the worlds have gone full open world RPG, and so generally the places where you could parkour have been stripped back in favour of just city locations. But I'd say that the cities aren't even big enough to warrant the parkour system being evolved in the newer games. And I guess this is kind of what Ubisoft have been doing. They've realised that the worlds don't accommodate the parkour anymore, and so there's no point of evolving the parkour system if it's not going to be utilised in a fun and exciting way. It's just not the way that Ubisoft have taken the franchise, which is very sad. And hopefully with Assassin's Creed Infinity being the next live service Assassin's Creed, hopefully, I really do hope that they've changed the parkour system that makes it a far more engaging experience for the player. As for me, an Assassin's Creed game that lacks good parkour isn't really an Assassin's Creed game, because half of the experience is the parkour and the traversal of the world. And so the long-awaited question that you've all been waiting for me to answer, yes, the day that Assassin's Creed died was the day that Ubisoft pushed for RPG Assassin's Creeds. Because by this point, the focus wasn't on the parkour mechanics and how they can be new and interesting like how they tried to evolve in Syndicate with the grapple hook, but instead the focus was put to rarity systems with your weapons, different skins to choose from, and even skill trees. The focus really was taken away from the parkour mechanics that made the series so iconic for so many people. And maybe in the next few Assassin's Creeds, Ubisoft will realise what mistakes they have made, although that is highly doubtful. I guess we're just gonna have to be optimistic for the next Assassin's Creed to hopefully right those wrongs. Because at the end of the day, Assassin's Creed isn't about people in hoods with hidden blades assassinating targets throughout history. but it's about the experience of the world and how the world makes you feel. Does it make you feel like an assassin, or does it make you feel like someone who just knows the bare bones of parkour? If I'm honest, I'd rather feel like an assassin. And so I really do hope with Assassin's Creed Infinity that they change it up and make it the best parkour system that we have ever seen, but at the moment, that is only a dream. Hey, that rhymed. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, then subscribe, like, and turn on the notification button so you don't miss another upload from me. So, thank you, and goodbye.